Hi, my name is Lexi and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about whether you should tell people or not that you fast. Okay, so the answer to this question is obviously going to depend on you and your personality and the people that you have in your life. But I kind of wanted to talk about it because I feel like this is something that people struggle with. Fasting can be kind of a faux pas, although it's becoming a lot more mainstream and a lot more widely accepted. There's a lot of research out there supporting the benefits of fasting. So you have that to back you up. But there's always going to be those people in your life that you're just not really sure if they're going to accept the idea of fasting. So let's talk about it. So again, this is really going to come down to knowing yourself and knowing the people around you. Of course, there's some people who are fasting evangelists, you could say, that just kind of shout it from the rooftops and want to share it with everyone. And then there's people who are just really timid about sharing what they're doing. Honestly, and you might be surprised, but I'm somewhere in between. I don't like to go around just like telling everyone in my life that I'm fasting. In fact, I don't bring it up unless it comes up. So there are a lot of people that I interact with who don't know that I fast. As far as my kids, they know that I fast because they know what the title of my channel is, and we in our religion fast once a month, the first Sunday of the month. So they're used to the concept of fasting. I don't think they realize how often I do it or why I do it. They just they're boys. They're just in their own world. So as long as they get their food, they're happy. But in general, I would say that if you are someone who is easily persuaded or taken off course by other people's opinions, and you know that if someone says something negative to you about fasting and you know that that's going to affect you, then I would say steer away from those conversations, because what you want to do is you want to get, especially in the beginning, you want to get this foundation under your feet and you want to have your own experience to go off of. And so you really want to kind of build your case, so to speak. And it's not that you have to be defensive about it, because honestly, in the end, I feel like you have to live your life and other people have to live theirs. And that's what it comes down to. But of course, there's going to be people in your life who you may interact with on a regular basis who you feel like this is going to come up. And so you kind of want to be prepared for that moment. This is why I would say that if you are one of these people who is very timid and is very afraid that someone is going to change your mind, then I would say this is like one of the main great reasons, and I suggest this anyway, of starting out slow with fasting, because it is a lot easier to work around telling people if you're doing like a 16-8 protocol than if you are doing alternate day fasting. If you're not eating for an entire day, it's a lot harder to hide that if you're around people than if you are eating within 8 hours, because obviously you can work that around your eating schedule to be able to not eat around people. And there may be times where it's tricky still. Like for instance, if you're actually like trying to not tell someone in your own household and you normally would eat breakfast together and dinner together, and that might be tricky. So in that case, I would honestly just even start with an even longer window, like 10 hours or whatever, and then go down from there and just kind of say, I'm not hungry yet or whatever as you go, because it will be true. You know, you can say, I'm not hungry yet, I'm going to eat a little bit later. You don't have to make a big thing out of it, I guess is what I'm saying. And I do recommend, though, that if you are living with people, that you have this conversation with them sooner than later, because I think it's going to cause more stress and anxiety to be like hiding around this person who you're living with than the benefits of not telling them. I really believe that. So, but if like you just need to get through those first couple of weeks and you don't feel like you're ready to have that conversation, then I would say just start out really small and then work your way in and then get ready for that conversation. I want to mention that I do believe that most people in your life are just concerned about you. They may have seen you do a bunch of crash diets. They may have heard of fasting and they only think of it as like starvation. And there is plenty of research out there to prove that fasting is not the same thing as starvation, not at all. And it's actually really good for you. Yes, you can overdo it for sure, but there's a lot of research out there. Now, not everyone is going to be open to reading the research, but that's their choice ultimately. But for those people who are open and willing to learn, I think the best thing is to be ready with some resources. I always have listed below the books that are my favorite. Fast, Feast, Repeat, The Obesity Code, those are probably my top two right there. Delay, Don't Deny by Jen Stevens is a very like gentle opening to fasting for people who like to read. Okay, so not everyone likes to read. So there are also some podcasts that are amazing. Very scientifically oriented. I would recommend Andrew Huberman's podcast on fasting. It's really long. It's 2.5 hours long, but so much like information and really just gives an in-depth overview of the science behind fasting. My favorite podcast to listen to is the Intermittent Fasting Stories podcast by Jen Stevens, which is just a different person on every episode sharing their story. Some incredible stories. And also along those lines, the Fasting Highway podcast, same thing, different person every episode, lots of different experiences and stories. I was actually on that podcast, episode 93. So yeah, and those are some really great resources to share with those people if they are open and willing to learn. Again, not everyone will be, and that's just where you have to come to that point where, okay, I've been doing this long enough. I'm convinced personally that it's good for me. Whether or not the outward results are showing right now, I feel committed to this. That's where you just have to say, you do you and I'll do me, and leave it at that. And I hope that that's going to work for you. I know that there are some situations where there are people who are very toxic, and that's a situation where you have to like look at boundaries and how you want to sort of approach those relationships going forward. And that's really a complicated thing that I can't get into in this episode, nor am I an expert, but I think researching a little bit about boundaries and keeping those with people is a really good thing. So if you do have someone in your life who just sort of always picks at you and picks apart everything you're doing and you feel like it's going to be a hindrance to your fasting journey, then I would suggest really trying to avoid that person, definitely trying to avoid the topic, and just changing the subject when you have to, and standing your ground, because there's no reason why you should feel like you're doing something crazy unless you are doing something crazy, which, like I said, you can overdo fasting, but I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about intermittent fasting, alternate day fasting if you are an experienced faster. So there is definitely solid research behind all of this, and I just want you to feel confident that that you're doing something good for yourself, and definitely get that experience under your belt so that you know how you feel. So especially one thing to do is, and this is just something I would recommend regardless, is before you start fasting, write down all of the things that are troubling you. Not just weight, but like, do you have psoriasis? Do you have high blood pressure? Do you have type 2 diabetes? Do you have inflammation, aches and pains, headaches? all of these different things, every single thing that like you deal with on a regular basis. These are probably things that you've gotten so used to that you don't even think about them anymore. I know for me, one was like brain fog, like total brain fog all the time, just like fuzzy headed, would forget things, and just sort of sluggish all the time. So write all those things down. And then as you go on after week 1, week 2, week 3, write down any gains that you've had. Not just scale weight loss, but have any of these things improved? You know, I know a lot of people say that their psoriasis or their, what's the foot one? Plantar fasciitis is one that I hear people saying goes away often. Okay, so like you have these things, you write them down, and then when you have these conversations, you can say, and this is particularly helpful if you haven't lost any weight, because if someone's like, well, you haven't lost any weight, so why are you doing this? Then you can say, well, these things have improved, and I do believe that the weight loss will come. And then you can point them to these podcasts where you have people who took a really long time to lose weight, because that does happen. Sometimes the weight just gets stuck because there's other things that need to heal, and your body is prioritizing those, and it just doesn't care if you lose weight. So it's a different journey for everyone. Now, here's another question, like, what if you want to help someone? What if you want to share fasting with someone because you want to help them? I know that there are a lot of people in my life who could greatly benefit from fasting, but I'm very, very careful about how I bring it up or whether I do or not, because the thing is, what I've learned about people when it comes to radical changes like this, and it is a radical change, it's a mindset shift. People have to be ready, and they have to want to do it themselves. And people don't take very kindly to unsolicited advice most of the time. And so like, I'm really, really cautious about sharing. If somebody comes to me and they're like, I'm struggling with my weight and I don't know what to do, then that's where I would for sure jump in and share what I know. I did have one friend who was, talking to me about how she was had tried and tried and tried, and she thought, I probably just am gonna have to weight loss surgery. And we did talk about fasting. And honestly, I haven't talked to her about it since then. I don't know if she's done it. I know her husband was doing it, and so she was already familiar. But people just have to be ready, and all you can do is sort of plant those seeds and hope that one day the soil will be rich enough, the conditions will be right, that seed will grow. And I know that for me personally, I had to be ready. I had to want to do it. I had to find the information myself. And the thing is that even if you do get people to do it, if they're not committed and like sort of converted to the idea, chances are when it gets hard, they're gonna quit, and then they're gonna think, oh, I tried that once and it didn't work. And that's the saddest thing to me, because if someone has a bad experience, they may never go back to it, And so I think that learning is so important. Learning the why behind fasting is so important. And without that, there's just not the same level of commitment. And so, yeah, I just really think that it's important to gauge where people are at, whether you're trying to help them or whether you're just trying to share with people what you're doing. I think it's important to sort of gauge those relationships and the personalities and decide how far you should go with that. And again, like if you do have someone who is open to learning that you feel like you could help, just slowly give them information when they're ready, and according to what kind of personality they have and how much science they want to get into. There's also the New England Journal of Medicine article that's very heavily into the science side of what the benefits of fasting are. You could share that. So many great podcasts, so many YouTube videos. You could share my channel, just whatever you think would best suit that person. And then in the end, if they are closed off to the idea and they don't want to hear it, then you just say, okay, well, if you ever want to know any more, I have lots of resources I can share with you. If not, we're still friends. So it kind of just has to come to an impasse sometimes, and you just come to that point where it's like, you do you, I'll do me, we'll live our lives. I wish you the best. I hope that you wish me the best, and you go from there. So I hope that was helpful for someone out there who may be struggling with some of these issues, whether you don't feel like you have support in your life, or you wish that you could help someone. Just some thoughts that might help. So thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye.